There is a glaringly obvious flaw in the national defense infrastructure on the west coast of the United States. As tensions rise between China and the US, decades of underinvestment in domestic infrastructure could prove to be devastating to the Navy's ability to operate in the Pacific. America has the most powerful Navy in the world, but one small underfunded rail corridor in the Southwest could prove to be the weak link during a conflict. Given the two oceans that surround the United States and isolate it from other powers, the Navy has been a cornerstone of America's defense since its founding. It enables the logistics required to project power across oceans and ensure that we never get cut off from our allies. Having two coasts has proven immensely beneficial to the US, both economically and strategically, making the Navy even more indispensable. But a Navy quickly becomes useless without an efficient logistics network to maintain, stock, and repair its ships throughout a war. On the West Coast, there are two major naval hubs. In the northwest corner is Seattle, Washington, and in the southwest corner is San Diego, California. Naval Base Kitsap near Seattle primarily focuses on submarine warfare. It sits on the Puget Sound, which is fairly deep, making it perfect for submarines. Meanwhile, San Diego has a much smaller and shallower bay that works perfectly for repairing and maintaining surface ships, and it currently serves as the main home port for the Pacific Fleet. It's hard to overstate how big of a naval hub San Diego is, especially considering how small it is by area. Naval Base San Diego is home port to almost 60 ships, and Naval Air Station North Island, right across the bay, is home port to 3 aircraft carriers. That's more than a quarter of the US's 11 active aircraft carriers, and more than any other country in the world even has, including China. Hundreds of billions of dollars in naval assets are all maintained in a small, picturesque bay in the southwest corner of the United States. And while San Diego is a popular tourist destination, known for its beautiful beaches and great weather, it's actually quite geographically isolated from the rest of the country. The region is surprisingly mountainous, which leaves very few practical routes into the city. There are 3 major freeways into San Diego and only 1 active rail corridor. 2 of these freeways, the 15 and the 5, along with the LOSSAN rail corridor, serve to connect Los Angeles and San Diego. Meanwhile, the 8 heads out directly east from San Diego to connect it with Arizona, and is the only connection to the rest of the country that doesn't go through LA. And while freeways are great, when it comes to wartime logistics, trains are critical. While you could truck in all the steel and other materials necessary to repair and stock ships, freight trains are the cheapest and most efficient method to move tons of heavy materials over large distances. And history has shown time and time again that while ships can win battles, logistics wins wars. Speaking of history, it just so happens that San Diego used to have several railroads into the city. During World War II, when San Diego played a critical role in repairing the Pacific Fleet, all 3 rail lines into the city saw major jumps in freight traffic. The coolest of these railroads has to be the San Diego and Arizona Eastern, which broke ground in 1907. It's noteworthy since it ended up having to run through Mexico to enter San Diego from the south. This route through Mexico was necessary as it would allow the railroad engineers to leverage the convenient geography of the Tijuana River watershed. However, they were still left with one huge problem: figuring out how to cross the rugged mountains that surround San Diego to the east. The result was an absolute feat of engineering, which earned the nickname the Impossible Railroad. As if it wasn't complicated enough, just 1 year after securing the land leases necessary from the Mexican government, the Mexican Revolution began in 1910. During this period, railroad workers were attacked several times by Mexican revolutionaries looking to gather supplies and disrupt communications. Then, in 1917, during World War I, the US seized control of all railroads as part of the war effort. They stopped construction of this line in an effort to preserve resources, only to quickly reverse their decision, realizing that it provided a direct connection to a major military hub. Miraculously, the railroad's construction completed in 1919. Leaving behind one of the coolest engineering feats of the time: the world's largest wooden trestle bridge used to cross the Carrizo Gorge. And although the San Diego and Arizona Eastern is a thing of the past, it highlights that during our last major conflict, we had the redundancy of multiple freight rail lines to support one of our largest naval hubs. Unfortunately, today, San Diego has only one rail link to the rest of the country through the larger hub of Los Angeles, and it's currently falling into the ocean. The train tracks between LA and San Diego run along unstable cliffs and over wooden bridges that are over 100 years old. And wood bridges exposed to salty ocean air definitely don't age like a fine wine. It's a beautiful train ride along the coast, but when it rains, landslides and cliff erosion can close down the tracks for days, if not weeks at a time. And this isn't breaking news to the US government. I'm not exposing some sensitive national security secret. This train corridor is already designated by the US Department of Defense as part of the Strategic Rail Corridor Network, which identifies rail connections that serve critical defense sites. And yet somehow it still finds itself in absolutely terrible condition. It's also worth mentioning that it's part of the second most trafficked Amtrak passenger rail corridor in the country, with 1.5 million trips in 2023. Although, for proper context and in the spirit of academic honesty, ridership in the Northeastern Corridor connecting Boston and Washington, D.C. does absolutely blow it out of the water, with 12.1 million trips in 2023. But I would argue the LOSSAN corridor struggles with ridership and saw a 7% drop in ridership between 2022 and 2023, in large part because the tracks are so slow and unreliable. In fact, it has the unfortunate distinction of being one of only 2 Amtrak routes that saw a drop in ridership in the post-pandemic recovery, which is particularly concerning when you consider that similar routes saw a 20 to 30% ridership increase. While ridership has recovered somewhat in 2024, the trend seen in the LOSSAN corridor is worrisome. Here's one of America's most used passenger rail corridors continuing to lose ridership in a trend that began in 2017, long before COVID. All while other similar corridors are booming. But enough about passenger rail. Time to get back to baiting the military-industrial complex into building me a better train. As war becomes increasingly likely over a potential invasion of Taiwan, the national conversation will quickly turn to increased defense spending. But that conversation tends to leave out one critical piece. Being able to project power is not just about how many ships you have. It's also about the logistics behind them. For the same price as an aircraft carrier, around $13 billion, and I'm being generous, the US could choose to revolutionize the strategic rail corridor between LA and San Diego. What's the point of having another aircraft carrier if you can't supply and maintain it properly? At a bare minimum, the LOSSAN corridor needs funding for a handful of cliff instability projects. These projects would move the tracks inland in some sections away from the unstable ocean cliffs, while also serving to straighten those sections out. But, like all railway lines in the US, additional investment would go a long way. Further straightening the tracks, along with full electrification, would allow trains to operate at much higher speeds, greatly reducing travel times between the two cities. For example, just the Del Mar and Miramar tunnel projects in San Diego would save almost 20 minutes. These 2 projects alone would bring the total travel time between LA and San Diego down to around 2.5 hours, making it a much more attractive alternative to driving. Similarly, double tracking the railway corridor would vastly improve both freight and passenger throughput, allowing trains going opposite directions to pass each other without one having to stop to let the other through. Fixing this one rail corridor could, in the end, prove to do more for America's national defense than a new ship. Plus, as a bonus, it would have tangible benefits for the Americans who live in the region, since the tracks are also used for passenger rail. The corridor has had these issues for years, and yet funding never seems to materialize. And it's because it's never been prioritized as a matter of national defense. If we were to get into a war in the Pacific, this rail link would become a top priority overnight. But we don't need to wait. We should just fix it now. Not only because American citizens would benefit immediately, but because waiting until an active conflict arises will only leave us scrambling to catch up. Infrastructure isn't just about moving people and goods around. Infrastructure is national defense.